This title is narrated with virtual voice, computer-generated narration for audiobooks. Dawson Bride by T.S. Joyce. Chapter 1. Gable. Of all the smells on earth, blood was the most interesting, complicated, delicious scent in existence. It was trapped inside of every living mammal by paper-thin skin. While it was probably the most prominent of all smells, such richness and bulk certainly didn't belong in the English countryside. It wasn't the genocide of bunnies or deer, or the slaughter of livestock. Each animal had a different signature in the sensitive lining of my nose. No, this type of richness only belonged to humans. A lot of humans. A fog had fallen over the woods, and while it wasn't uncommon where I roamed, it was uncomfortable. Mist dulled the senses, it shortened sight and dampened smells. Even forest sounds were muffled under the blanketing cloud cover. For all of its dimming qualities, still, it did nothing to mask all that blood. Dark had come, and brought no stars or moon to illuminate the wooded land. Animals skittered to their burrows and nests, afraid of the preternatural silence that cloaked the trees. Even the wind had died down to nothing, stirring not a leaf and rattling not a branch. The air filled with tiny, frightened heartbeats, and they weren't from fear of myself. I was a part of these woods now. A whine escaped my throat as I slunk toward the intoxicating smell. I wasn't a curious creature by nature, but something was off, and some deep instinct pushed me farther and farther out of my territory. My ears twitched and filled with the screams of women and the gunfire of men. Whatever was happening here in my woods was of hell's making. I couldn't untuck my tail from between my legs if I tried. The stench of gunpowder, fear, and violence hung in the air, and I paced frantically back and forth as a looming shape appeared through the mist. Still, I was drawn closer. I'd been a wolf for a long time now, but the man in me was still inside there somewhere. The shape was a castle, or as close to one as I'd ever come, complete with sprawling trout pond in the middle of the entrance and acres of gardens, statues, and elaborate fountains. The road was cobbled for fine carriages, and the mansion boasted stonework from the finest architects. I sniffed again. I'd been mistaken. It wasn't a castle, it was a tomb. I growled and shifted my weight from side to side. It was time to leave. I'd seen it. I knew what was happening inside. This wasn't my fight. I turned and froze at the soft whimper of a child. If I'd had a chance of escape at all, it had been stolen from me with the fear-filled sigh of that little boy. No matter what happened next, my fate had been cemented with that cry here in the woods. The cry I couldn't turn away from and live with myself. I guess I'd die with myself instead. Shrubs, roots, and night air rushed past as I raced for the side of the gargantuan manor. My change from wolf to man wasn't agonizing like it was for my brothers. I'd mastered it long ago, when I became more animal than human. In a burst of light and pain and cracking bones, my blood was encased in fragile human skin once again. I didn't cry out or hunch over in pain. None of those things eased the agony that rippled through my insides. Avoidance was a pointless waste of time, and if the boy was going to live, time was a commodity I didn't have. Front doors were for receiving guests and making a first impression. Back doors led to gardens and quiet getaways, where barons and counts snuck kisses to their wives and mistresses. Side doors were for servants. The knuckles and muscles of my fingers were frozen with disuse, and the effort to grip the edge of the cracked door was staggering. I'd been an animal too long. If I was to be of any help to the boy, I'd have to loosen up and quick. Inside, I was met by the servants' quarters.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.